unlimited drama series.
The coffee was cold again. Third time this week, Collins had walked out mid-conversation, leaving me sitting at our kitchen table like some kind of furniture she'd forgotten to dust. I stared at the ring her mug left on the mahogany. Another small betrayal in what was becoming a collection. "You still here?" Collins breezed back through, phone pressed to her ear, designer heels clicking against our hardwood floors. She looked right through me, the way you'd look through a window you weren't interested in cleaning. "I'm Barnes Harper, 41 years old, mechanical engineer, and apparently the last loyal husband in a world full of loyalty points programs. My beard's going gray faster than my patience, and my wife's been treating our 20-year marriage like a subscription service she's thinking about canceling." "Yeah, I'm still here," I muttered, but she was already gone again, her voice carrying from the hallway, as she talked to whoever was more important than the man who'd been sharing her bed for 2 decades. The house felt different lately. Too quiet when we were both home, too loud when she was on those endless phone calls. Our daughters, Beck and Sylvia, had started asking questions during their weekend visits. 22 and 25, both smart enough to smell the tension but too polite to call it what it was. I pushed back from the table and grabbed my keys. The garage was my sanctuary these days. Oil stains and power tools didn't lie to you or leave coffee rings on expensive furniture. But as I reached for the door handle, Collins appeared again, this time without the phone. "We need to talk," she said, crossing her arms. The gesture pushed up her breasts in that calculated way that used to drive me crazy. Now it just looked like a negotiation tactic. "About what? Your new hobby of treating me like I'm invisible?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Barnes. I'm just busy with work." "Right, work." I leaned against the doorframe. Heck, what kind of HR consulting requires midnight phone calls and weekend trips to Austin? Her jaw tightened. "The kind that pays for this house." I seem to remember my engineering salary helping with that. "Your engineering salary." She laughed, but it wasn't the warm sound I'd fallen in love with in college. This was sharp, cutting. "When's the last time you got a real promotion? When's the last time you brought home anything exciting?" The words hit like a physical blow. I'd been with the same firm for 15 years, steady work, good benefits. Maybe not exciting, but reliable. Apparently, reliable had gone out of style. "I see," I straightened up. "So, this is about money. This is about ambition, Barnes. About wanting more than just this." She gestured around our kitchen, our home, our life. "About not settling." Settling. The word tasted bitter. "Is that what you call our marriage now?" Before she could answer, her phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and I caught something in her expression, a flutter, a quickening. The look she used to get when I called. "I have to take this," she said, already turning away. "Of course you do." I made it to the garage before I heard her voice again, softer now, almost intimate. "Hey, you." "No, he's not listening." I know. 20 years. 20 goddamn years. And I was eavesdropping on my own wife like some kind of private investigator. But I couldn't stop myself from pressing my ear to the door. "Can't wait to see you tonight. That little place we talked about. Wear the red dress." My hands clenched into fists. The red dress. The one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she claimed she never had occasion to wear. I yanked open the garage door and stepped into the afternoon heat. The suburban streets stretched out before me, perfect lawns and perfect houses, hiding perfectly imperfect lives. Mrs. Chen was watering her roses next door, and she waved. I managed to wave back, wondering if she could see the cracks forming in my foundation. My phone buzzed. Text from Vince, my old buddy from college, who'd become a private investigator after washing out of the police force. "Beer tonight? You sound like you need it." I did need it. I needed a lot of things. Answers. Honesty. A wife who didn't look at me like I was a disappointing quarterly report. But first, I needed to figure out what the hell was happening to my life. I texted back, "Make it 2 beers, maybe 3. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Collins through the kitchen window, still on the phone, still animated in a way she hadn't been with me in months. She was wearing the red dress. Vince's bar of choice was a dive called Murphy's, the kind of place where the beer was cold, the lighting was dim, and nobody asked questions about why you needed a drink on a Tuesday night. He was already there when I arrived, his ex-cop posture unmistakable, even hunched over a bottle of Budweiser. "You look like hell," he said by way of greeting. "Feel worse," I signaled the bartender. "Collins is cheating." Vince didn't even blink. "You sure?" Red dress, secret phone calls, suddenly I'm not good enough. I took a long pull of beer. "Yeah, I'm sure. Want me to find out who?" This was why I loved Vince. No bullshit, no false sympathy, just straight to the practical solution. Can you do it without her knowing? Brother, I once tailed a cheating spouse for 3 weeks without them figuring out I was sleeping in their neighbor's pool house. Collins won't see me coming. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of quiet that comes from 20 years of friendship. Finally, Vince spoke up. "You know what pisses me off most about cheaters?" "What?" "They always act like the victim. Like somehow you forced them to step out because you weren't exciting enough, rich enough, whatever enough." He shook his head. "My ex-wife pulled the same shit. Suddenly, our marriage was my fault. Because I worked too much, didn't pay enough attention, didn't make enough money. How'd you handle it?" Vince grinned, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. "Professionally, thoroughly, and with extreme prejudice." He raised his bottle. "To professional thoroughness, to extreme prejudice," I replied, clinking bottles. 2 days later, Vince called with news. His name's Lance Morrison. Real estate developer, married, drives a matte black Range Rover like he's compensating for something. Which, based on the photos I took, he probably is. Photos. Hotel parking lot yesterday afternoon. Your wife and Mr. Morrison having what appeared to be a very intimate conversation in his front seat. Want me to email them? My phone buzzed before I could answer. The photos were grainy but clear enough. Collins, my Collins, with her hand on some guy's chest, laughing in a way that made my stomach turn. He was handsome in that generic real estate way. Too much gel in his hair, too white teeth, probably owned more than one pair of boat shoes. "There's more," Vince continued. "Guy's got a reputation. Been through 2 business partners. Both ended badly. His wife's some kind of ice queen socialite. Probably doesn't know about his extracurricular activities. What's his address?" Barnes. "What's his address, Vince?" A pause. "I'll text it to you, but don't do anything stupid." Define stupid. Anything that gets you arrested. I was already grabbing my keys. Can't promise that. Lance Morrison lived in one of those new developments where every house looked like it had been designed by the same committee of people who'd never actually lived in a house. His Range Rover was parked in the circular driveway like a monument to overpriced masculinity. I sat in my truck across the street for an hour, just watching. At 7:30, Collins's BMW pulled up. She got out wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Black, short, the kind of thing that cost more than most people's rent. She didn't knock. She had a key. That hurt worse than the photos. I waited another hour, then walked up to the Range Rover. The knife from my toolbox made quick work of all 4 tires. Not slashed, punctured. Harder to prove, easier to explain as wear and tear. I left a note under the windshield wiper. "Next time, it's you." Back in my truck, I called Vince. "It's done." "What's done?" "Barnes, what did you do?" "Nothing that can't be explained by bad luck and poor tire maintenance?" "Jesus Christ. You're going to get yourself in trouble." "I'm already in trouble, Vince. My wife's fucking another man in his house with a key he gave her. How much more trouble can I be in? The kind that involves lawyers and restraining orders. Then I better make sure I don't get caught." The next morning, Collins came home at 6 a.m., trying to sneak in through the garage. I was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and a newspaper, playing the role of the oblivious husband. "You're up early," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Couldn't sleep. How was book club?" "Book club? That's where you said you were going last night. Book club with Tara." I watched her process this, saw the moment she remembered her lie. "Oh, right, it ran late. We went for drinks after. Must have been some book. It was intense. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. I'm going to shower. As she headed upstairs, I called Tara. Barnes, is everything okay? Just checking on Collins. She seemed tired after book club last night. A pause. Book club? Yeah, she said you guys discussed some intense book until pretty late. Barnes? We didn't have book club last night. I was home with a migraine. Huh. Must have been confused. Thanks, Tara. I hung up and smiled for the first time in weeks. Collins was a cheater, but she was also a sloppy liar. That was going to make things much easier. The beauty of being an engineer is that you learn to think systematically. Every problem has a solution. You just have to break it down into manageable components. My problem had three main parts: unfaithful wife, arrogant lover, and ruined marriage. The solution required precision, patience, and a complete willingness to burn everything to the ground. Vince met me at Murphy's again, this time with a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Lance Morrison, he announced, dropping it on the table. 44 years old, married to Marlene Morrison for 12 years, no kids, owns Morrison Development, specializes in strip malls and low-income housing, has a thing for married women and expensive scotch. I flipped through the photos. Lance at various restaurants with various women, none of them his wife. Lance at a strip club. Lance stumbling out of bars. Lance being Lance. Guy's a walking cliche, I muttered. Gets better. His business is leveraged to hell. He's one bad quarter away from bankruptcy, but he keeps spending like he's Jeff Bezos. The Range Rover, leased, the house, second mortgage. Even his watch is financed. What about his wife? Marlene Morrison, née Patterson. Old Dallas money, family owns half the commercial real estate downtown. She's the one with the actual assets. I studied a photo of Marlene at some charity function. She looked like the kind of woman who'd been beautiful once, but had replaced warmth with precision. Everything about her screamed control, from her perfect posture to her calculated smile. She doesn't know about the cheating? If she does, she's a better actress than Meryl Streep. I've been watching their house for a week. They barely interact. He leaves early, comes home late, sleeps in the guest room half the time. An idea began forming. What would happen to Lance if Marlene found out about his extracurricular activities? Vince grinned. Divorce court would be a bloodbath. Texas is a community property state, but adultery can affect asset division. Plus, if she's as connected as her family suggests, she could destroy his business reputation overnight. Hypothetically, how would someone go about informing Mrs. Morrison of her husband's activities? Hypothetically? Anonymous package with photos and documentation. Untraceable, deniable, devastating. I closed the folder. How much do I owe you? For surveillance? $2,000. For the hypothetical package? That's pro bono. I hate cheaters. 3 days later, I was parked outside Morrison Development when Lance came storming out, phone pressed to his ear, face red with rage. Even through my closed windows, I could hear him shouting, "Don't know what you're talking about? Lies, all lies. 20 years of marriage, and you believe some anonymous..." He climbed into a rental car. Apparently the Range Rover was still being repaired, and peeled out of the parking lot. I followed at a distance, curious to see where a man goes when his world is falling apart. He went to Collins. She was waiting in the parking lot of a Starbucks, looking nervous in a way I hadn't seen since she'd told me she was pregnant with Beck. Lance practically fell out of his rental car, gesticulating wildly as he approached her. I parked 3 rows away and rolled down my windows. Pictures? Marlene has fucking pictures. What kind of pictures? Collins's voice carried in the afternoon air. Us, at the hotel, at my house, in my car. Someone's been following us. Collins went pale. Following us. Who would? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And when I do, they're going to regret ever being born. I almost laughed. Lance Morrison, real estate tough guy, threatening shadows. But Collins looked genuinely scared, which was interesting. She'd always been fearless, sometimes recklessly so. What was she afraid of? What did Marlene say? She asked. What do you think she said? She's filing for divorce, freezing our accounts, calling her lawyer. I'm fucked, Collins. Completely fucked. What about us? Lance stared at her like she'd asked him to explain quantum physics. What about us? There is no us anymore. I can't afford to be seen with you. But you said... I said a lot of things. That was before my wife decided to destroy my life. Collins stepped back like he'd slapped her. So that's it? You're just going to abandon me? Lady, I'm about to lose everything I own. You're a luxury I can't afford. He got back in his rental car and drove away, leaving Collins standing alone in the parking lot.
You wrote him love poems. In 10 years, you never wrote me a word.
It was emotional.
How is he telling in another?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
She looked smaller somehow, diminished. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the red dress and the key, and the feeling passed. That evening, Collins came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, and she moved with the careful precision of someone trying not to fall apart. Rough day? I asked from my chair, not looking up from my newspaper. You could say that. Want to talk about it? She studied my face, looking for something. Would you care if I said yes? Try me. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth. Confess everything, apologize, maybe even cry. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and walked toward the stairs. Never mind, I'm going to bed. Collins? She stopped, hand on the banister. If you ever want to tell me what's really going on, I'm here. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Regret? Fear? Hope? I know, she said quietly. But some things are too complicated to explain. Try me, I repeated. But she was already walking upstairs, leaving me alone with my newspaper and my plans for revenge. The divorce papers were delivered on a Tuesday, right to Collins' office. I'd specifically requested that timing. Maximum humiliation, minimum privacy. According to my lawyer, she'd opened the envelope in front of 3 colleagues and her boss. She called 6 times, my attorney said over the phone. Wanted to know if this was some kind of joke. What did you tell her? That my client was seeking dissolution of marriage due to irreconcilable differences, and that she should retain counsel immediately. How did she sound? Like someone who just got hit by a freight train. Good. It was about time Collins experienced some consequences for her actions. I was at Murphy's celebrating with Vince when my phone rang. Collins, of course. Barnes, what the hell is this? Divorce papers. I thought that was fairly obvious. You can't be serious. 20 years of marriage, Collins. I'm dead serious. We need to talk. We've been needing to talk for months. You've been too busy. A pause. I'm coming home. It's not your home anymore. I had the locks changed. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Finally, where am I supposed to go? I hear Lance Morrison has a nice place. Oh, wait, his wife kicked him out too. Maybe you can find a hotel. You bastard. Funny thing about that word, Collins. It implies illegitimate parentage, but I know exactly who my father is, and he taught me that a man doesn't let people walk all over him forever. I hung up and ordered another beer. Harsh, Vince observed. She earned it. What's next? Now we wait for her to make a mistake. Angry people do stupid things. I didn't have to wait long. Collins showed up at my office the next morning, causing enough of a scene that security had to escort her out. By noon, half the engineering department had heard about it, and by evening, the story had reached my boss. Everything okay at home, Barnes? He asked, poking his head into my office. Getting better by the day, actually. Good to hear. Let me know if you need any time off to handle personal matters. Collins was making this easier than I'd hoped. Every public outburst, every dramatic scene, every tear-filled phone call to mutual friends painted her as the unstable party. Meanwhile, I maintained my reputation as the steady, reliable engineer who'd been wronged by his unstable wife. The real breakthrough came when Vince called with news about Lance. Your boy's desperate, he reported. Lost his business, lost his house, living in some extended stay motel off I-35. Word is he's been calling Collins nonstop, begging her to take him back. And? And she's been refusing his calls. Apparently getting abandoned in a parking lot killed the romance. Interesting. What's he doing for money? That's the beautiful part. He's broke. Marlene cleaned him out in the divorce, took everything that wasn't nailed down. He's driving a 10-year-old Honda and working at a car dealership. Lance Morrison, car salesman. There's poetry in that. Gets better. His new job? It's at Patterson Motors. I nearly choked on my coffee, and Patterson, as in Marlene's family business. She got him a job selling used cars for her uncle. The woman's got a sense of humor. That weekend, I drove out to Patterson Motors just to see for myself. There was Lance in a cheap suit and cheaper tie, trying to convince a young couple to buy a Honda Civic with 150,000 miles on it. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 months. I parked across the street and watched him work. No swagger now, no arrogant confidence. Just a middle-aged man in a bad suit, trying to make enough commission to pay for his motel room. My phone buzzed. Text from Collins. "We need to talk, please." I typed back, "Nothing to discuss. See you in court." "Barnes, please. I made a mistake." "You made a choice. Live with it." "I love you." I stared at those 3 words for a long time. 2 months ago, they would have meant everything. Now they just looked like manipulation. Funny way of showing it. Give me a chance to explain. You had 20 years to explain. Time's up. I put the phone away and watched Lance fail to close another sale. A year ago, this man had been sleeping with my wife, driving his leased Range Rover, living in his mortgaged house, acting like he owned the world. Now, he was a used car salesman, whose ex-wife had made sure he'd never climb back up. The beauty of systematic revenge is that you don't have to do all the work yourself. Sometimes you just have to push the right dominoes and let gravity handle the rest. Collins called that night, crying. "I saw Lance today," she sobbed. "He looks terrible." "I wouldn't know." "Barnes, please. Can't we try to work this out?" "Work what out, Collins? The fact that you cheated? The fact that you lied? The fact that you had a key to another man's house?" Silence. "Yeah, I know about the key. I know about a lot of things." "How? Does it matter?" "The point is, you destroyed our marriage, not me, you. I was confused, I was lonely. You were selfish, there's a difference. What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." "That's the point." I hung up and poured myself a scotch. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with the normal problems. I wasn't normal people anymore. I was a man who'd learned that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure everyone else loses worse than you do. And I was just getting started. The final phase required precision timing and careful orchestration. Collins had been staying at her sister's place, growing more desperate by the day. Lance was still selling used cars and living in his motel. Both of them were isolated, broke, and beginning to realize that their affair had cost them everything. Time to make sure they understood exactly how much. I'd been working on the plan for weeks, ever since Vince mentioned that Lance had been trying to contact Collins. Desperate people make predictable choices, and I was counting on both of them being very, very desperate. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. I sent Collins a text from a burner phone, pretending to be Lance. "Meet me at Murphy's tonight at 9. We need to talk about getting back together. I have a plan." Then I sent Lance a similar message, pretending to be Collins. "I've been thinking about us. Meet me at Murphy's at 9. I miss what we had." Both of them were so hungry for hope that they didn't question the messages. I arrived at Murphy's at 8:30 and positioned myself in a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. Vince was at the bar, ready to record whatever happened next. Collins arrived first, at exactly 9 p.m. She'd dressed carefully, the black dress again, her hair done, makeup perfect. She looked around nervously, then chose a table near the window. Lance showed up 10 minutes later, also dressed up as much as his reduced circumstances allowed. His cheap suit had been pressed, his hair was freshly cut, and he walked with something approaching his old confidence. I watched Collins's face when she saw him. Confusion first, then understanding, then anger. "What are you doing here?" she hissed as he approached her table. "You texted me," he replied, pulling out his phone. "Said you missed what we had." "I didn't text you anything." They stared at each other for a moment, both realizing they'd been set up. Lance looked around the bar suspiciously, but I was hidden in the shadows, just another customer nursing a beer. "Someone's playing games," Collins said. "Yeah, and I think I know who." Lance's voice carried across the room. "Your husband. Barnes wouldn't do something like this, wouldn't he? Guy's been systematically destroying my life for months. You think this is coincidence?" Collins looked genuinely surprised. "What are you talking about?" "The photos to Marlene, the slashed tires, the anonymous tips to my business partners. Your husband's been waging war, and we've been too stupid to realize it." I had to admire Lance's deductive skills, even if he was only about half right. I hadn't needed to destroy his business relationships. His own reputation had done most of that work. "Barnes isn't like that," Collins insisted. "He's not vindictive. Lady, he just tricked us both into coming here so he could watch us figure out how fucked we are. That's not vindictive?" Collins looked around the bar again, and for a moment, her eyes passed right over me. I raised my beer in a mock toast, and she gasped. "There," she pointed, "in the corner." Lance spun around and our eyes met across the room. He started toward me, his face twisted with rage, but Vince intercepted him. "I wouldn't," Vince said quietly, flashing his old police badge. "Public place, lots of witnesses. You really want to add assault to your list of problems?" Lance stopped, breathing hard. "You son of a bitch," he called out to me. "What the hell do you want?" I stood up slowly, finishing my beer. The entire bar was watching now, sensing drama. "I want you to understand something," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Both of you. You thought you could destroy my marriage, humiliate me, make me look like a fool, and there would be no consequences." "Barnes," Collins started. 20 years, I continued. 20 years I was faithful to you. 20 years I worked, provided, loved, supported. And you threw it away for what? For him?" I pointed at Lance. "A broke used car salesman who abandoned you the minute things got difficult?" "It wasn't like that," she protested. "It was exactly like that. You want to know how I know? Because I watched it happen. I watched him dump you in that parking lot. I watched you cry. I watched you realize that everything you'd given up wasn't worth what you'd gotten in return." Lance stepped forward again, but Vince was still there, still calm, still intimidating. "You destroyed my business," Lance snarled. "Your business was built on borrowed money and false promises. I just made sure the right people knew about it. My marriage? Your marriage was a sham. Marlene deserved to know what kind of man she was married to." "And Collins?" Lance gestured toward my wife. "What did she deserve?" I looked at Collins, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, looking small and broken. "She deserved honesty," I said quietly. "She deserved to know that the man she was cheating with was a coward who would run the minute things got complicated." "I'm not a coward," Lance protested. "No? Then why are you here? Why are you trying to get back together with a married woman instead of rebuilding your own life?" Lance opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer because there wasn't one. "Here's what's going to happen," I announced. "You're both going to walk out of here and never contact each other again. Collins, you're going to sign the divorce papers and stop making scenes at my workplace. Lance, you're going to focus on selling cars and staying out of my life." "And if we don't?" Collins asked. I smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then I'll show everyone in Dallas the security footage of you two at the Marriott. All of it. Every angle, every position, every moment of your great love affair." Collins went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Vince, show them the preview." Vince held up his phone, and even from across the room, I could see Collins and Lance recognize themselves in the grainy footage. "Hotel security cameras," I explained. "Amazing what you can access when you know the right people and have the right motivation." "That's illegal," Lance protested. "Prove it. Take me to court. Explain to a judge why you were in that hotel room with another man's wife." The fight went out of both of them. Lance slumped into a chair, and Collins buried her face in her hands. "You've made your point," she whispered. We're finished. Both of us. No, I corrected. You finished yourselves. I just made sure everyone could see it clearly. I walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. One more thing. The next time either of you decides to destroy someone's life for your own entertainment, remember this moment. Remember how it feels to lose everything because you thought you were smarter than everyone else. I left them sitting there, broken and defeated, while the entire bar stared. Outside, the night air was cool and clean, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. My phone buzzed. Text from Beck. Dad, are you okay? Mom's been calling, crying about something. I typed back, I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than I've been in a long time. See you this weekend? Always. Love you, Dad. Love you too. I drove home through the quiet streets of Dallas, past the perfect houses with their perfect lawns, knowing that my own house would be empty, but finally, truly mine.